Ladies and gentlemen, here's a real black man, Walter E. Williams, on the sad state of affairs that is black education and culture. See the links underneath the video, or the link. That's all you need to access all the stuff I'm going to cover. And here's Dr. Walter E. Williams. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city's specialized high schools have a diversity problem. He's joined by New York City Schools Chancellor Richard A. Carranza, educators, students, and community leaders who want to fix the diversity problem. I bet you can easily guess what they will do to improve the racial mix of students, aka diversity. If you guessed they would propose eliminating the specialized high school's admissions test, it's racist, as the sole criterion for admissions, go to the head of the class. The specialized high school's admissions test is an examination that is administered to New York City's 8th and 9th grade students by state law. It is used to determine admission to all but one of the city's 9 specialized high schools. It's taken as axiomatic that the relatively few blacks admitted to these high-powered schools is somehow tied to racial discrimination. In a June 2nd, 2018 Chalkbeat article, de Blasio writes, "The problem is clear. 8 of our most renowned high schools, including Stuyvesant High School, Bronx High School, etc., rely on a single high-stakes exam. The specialized high school admissions test isn't just flawed. It's a roadblock to justice, progress, and academic excellence." And that was the end of de Blasio's whining. Then Mr. Williams starts off again. Let's look at a bit of history to raise some questions about the mayor's diversity hypothesis. And I'll have some sobering statistics for you at the end of this, too. And I'll probably be called a racist, but the facts aren't racist. And Mr. Williams would agree with me. And Mr. Williams is probably smarter than any of you progressives that would take issue with this. I know I am, and Mr. Williams is on a whole nother level. Let's look at a bit of history to raise some questions about the mayor's hypothesis. Dr. Thomas Sowell provides some interesting stats about Stuyvesant High School in his book Wealth, Poverty, and Politics. He reports that in 1938, the proportion of blacks attending Stuyvesant High School, a specialized high school, was almost as high as the proportion of blacks in the population of New York City. Since then, it has spiraled downward. In 1979, blacks were 12.9% of students at the school, falling to 4.8% in 1995. By 2012, the New York Times reported that blacks were 1.2% of the student body. What explains the decline? None of the usual explanations for racial disparities makes sense. In other words, would one want to argue that there was less racial discrimination in 1938? Or argue that in 1938, the legacy of slavery had not taken effect, whereby now it is in full bloom? Genetic or environmental arguments cannot explain why blacks of an earlier generation were able to meet the demanding mental test standards to get into an elite high school. Socioeconomic conditions for blacks have improved dramatically since 1938. The only other plausible reason for the decline in academic achievement is that there has been a change in black culture. It doesn't take much to reach this conclusion. Simply look at school behavior today versus yesteryear. An Education Week article reported that in the 2015-2016 school year, 5.8% of the nation's 3.8 million teachers were physically attacked by a student. The Justice Department's Bureau of Justice Statistics and the Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistics show that in the 2011-12 academic year, there were a record 209,800 primary and secondary school teachers who reported being physically attacked by a student. Nationally, an average of 1,175 teachers and staff were physically attacked, including being knocked out each day of that school year. In the city of Baltimore, Each school day in 2010, an average of 4 teachers and staff were assaulted. A national NCES study found that 18% of the nation's schools accounted for 75% of the reported incidents of violence, and 6.6% accounted for half of all reported incidents. And he ends it with this: these are schools with predominantly black student populations. And this is where I inserted a whole bunch of links pertaining to some of this sobering information. But does that pencil neck Sam Seder think Medicare for all will suddenly cure the problem of illegitimate children? Stan should quit his little internet show and actually do something for mankind. He can't teach them how to cultivate a decent marriage because the old man can't do that. However, the old man can donate 90% of his income, which, judging from his production value on his little internet show, it's not very high, but donate 90% of his income teaching people, at least I think the old fella can do this, how to get to know someone for a few days before jumping in the sack with them. And I'll get to some stats that will tell you exactly why I said that. Sam Seder can also hand out condoms. Only you can prevent unwanted children. Progressives can stick their heads in the sand and ignore this problem. And so long as they get votes from these people, they have no intention of doing anything about it. They care not about the plight of these predominantly black children who are having their lives shoved into the gutter. They're only exacerbating the problem. Screeching racist at everyone who dares point out these problems. Promising more free stuff won't fix these issues. The human condition, and Mr. Williams would agree with me, and this cultural rut, or rot if you prefer, and Mr. Williams would agree with me, must be fixed before anything else. So now I'm going to go over some data here and pay attention to it very carefully. I cover a bunch of school districts. I've got all the links to all these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the school district, and then I'm going to give you 3 figures. Now keep in mind, the first one is percent of families with children that have food stamp benefits. The second one is the percentage of single-parent households in various school districts. And the third one would be percent of parents of children that are not in the labor force. So I'll even scan that real quick, take a screenshot of that and throw that up at the end too, so you can see exactly what I'm saying. So here we go. Again, percentage of families with children on food stamps, percent of single-parent households, and percentage of parents of children not in the labor force. Baltimore City Public Schools, Maryland, 50.7%, 71%, 20.2%. Detroit City School District, Michigan, 62.7%, 71%, 28.5%. 28.5% of the parents of children are not in the labor force in Detroit. Again, first one is percentage of families with children on food stamps, percentage of single-parent households, percentage of parents of children not in the labor force is a third one. Cleveland Municipal School District, Ohio, 61.2%, 72%, 24.9%. Jackson Public School District, Mississippi, 49%, 69%, 18.6%. Shelby County School District, Tennessee, 43.5%, 63%, 17.7%. Birmingham City School District, Alabama, 50%, 71%, 18.9%. Orleans Parish School District, Louisiana, 41.8%, 65%, 19.6%. East St. Louis School District, 189, Illinois, 66.5%, 83%, 28.7%. St. Louis City School District, Missouri, 53.1%, 69%, 19.3%. Atlanta, did you get that from, man, this is This is terrible. A lot of these kids are doomed. Atlanta City School District, Georgia, 44.1%, 64%, 18.2%. The welfare state's not working. Bibb County School District, Georgia, 45.2%, 57%, 17.6%. Doherty School District, Georgia, 49.5%, 65%, 21.1%. Montgomery County School District, Alabama, 39.5%, 59%, 20.8%. East Baton Rouge Parish School District, Louisiana, 35.3%, 58%, 16.3%. And finally, Flint City School District, Michigan, 68.6%, 71%, 25.3%. All these schools are majority black. Well, not majority, they're plurality black at least, and most of them are majority black. But in all of them, the highest percent of any ethnic group, blacks, African Americans, were the top, and then it was whites or somebody else. Some of them were less than 50% black, but they were a plurality. Most of them, they were a majority. I'll also have some data I'm going to put down there, and I might add it to the Facebook post I had on this, of how all these districts voted in the 2012 and 2016 elections, how these counties that these districts are in that are going down the tubes voted, and I'll give you 3 guesses who they voted for, and the first 2 don't count. But there's some sobering information. More welfare will not fix this. We need school choice, and we need personal responsibility. And any blacks out there that are questioning the Democrats, you can wander off that reservation. You don't have to be on welfare. You don't have to treat yourself like a victim. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to blame someone else. You can go to school and get a good degree. Walter E. Williams pulled himself out of that. He grew up in Philadelphia in the projects in the 50s. It can be done. Welfare didn't get him where he is today. So if there are black people out there, and I know there's probably a good sizable portion of them on the Democrat side that they want to leave, but it's kind of like leaving the Muslim cult if you lived in Pakistan. If I can get an example that's kind of close to it. A black man living in the inner city wanting to get out of the Democrat Party and out of that life would be kind of like living in Pakistan and wanting to leave the cult of Islam. It's difficult, but I know there are a lot of blacks who want to do it. And you don't have to live that life Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and that Nancy boy Sam Seder. You don't have to live the life that they want you to live and be a victim and be a ward of the state. So, America, you have been warned.